The year was 2002, and a relatively new company named Yamato had learned from their efforts to produce a radical new 160 scale VF-1 toy that, with a little more size and a 14,800 yen asking price, they could create the VF-1 toy childhood dreams were made of. So they introduced the world to the 148 scale VF-1, originally thinking it would sell well enough to support maybe 3 repaints. The line would prove so popular it spawned 16 unique schemes and remained in production for a full 7 years. Almost exactly 16 years since the introduction of the Yamato 148 scale VF-1, Bandai introduced the world to the DX VF-1. At an MSRP of 18,000 yen, it's still a premium toy, but it was so popular every variant to date has sold out immediately. Where can you get one? You'll have to shop the secondary market like auction sites and secondhand stores. If you're looking for anything not sold under the Macross banner, hit that link in the comments below to support this channel and have a blast shopping at Big Bad Toy Store. Alright, the Yamato 160 version 2 toy dethroned the 148 scale VF-1, but it didn't convince you to upgrade, and now you want to know, why should I take the plunge into this DX line? The answer for that begins with the box. Though both toys are within a centimeter in fighter mode length, and the Bandai is a centimeter taller than the Yamato 148 in Batroid, the volume of the box the DX toy comes in is less than half the volume of the Yamato 148 scale toy. That means you can own twice as many of these toys and it will take up less space. That said, a positive aspect of the Yamato, and that Bandai probably won't match, is the variety. It's hard to imagine Bandai making another dozen of these toys at the pace they're going. But did Bandai skimp on accessories to make the smaller box possible? Not exactly. Both toys include guns with gun straps, pilot figures, and removable intake fan covers. They come installed on the Yamato toys. Yamato's movie version releases didn't include fixed post hands, but they did throw in 2 sets with most their TV releases. Bandai includes 3 sets of movie-style fixed post hands with each release, and for TV releases, they throw in a set of TV-style hands. Only Yamato includes full complements of both TV and Do You Remember Love style missiles. Bandai also gives you a display stand with adapters for each mode, side cavity fillers for Batroid mode, a tool you probably won't need for disconnecting the swing bar, and optional Gerwalk mode antennae, one is a spare. We'll look at how that's handled by the Yamato toy in just a bit. Yamato smuggled instructions and stickers with their toys in a secret compartment behind the cardboard tray. Bandai throws a baggie in with color instruction manual, but there's no stickers here as this toy has plenty of detail already painted on. So what about them missiles? Afraid you'll have to pay for a separate accessory pack if you think your toy looks naked without them. The Yamato 148 scale VF-1 looks nice in fighter mode, it really does, but the DX toy looks better. And really the big difference here, besides the beautiful paint applications, the just better color overall, the crisper okay, there's lots of better things about the DX toy. But the big one is that it tucks the arms up much, much better than the Yamato 148 did, and it does so without sacrificing any of the lines. Everything looks great in this profile pic, and it even manages to shove that head in a little bit tighter, so big points for Bandai. The Yamato, still a good looking toy in fighter mode, but the DX is better. The DX toy has amazing painted on detail just all over this thing, even in places that you just wouldn't really expect painted on detail, like what's going on at the end of the wing here. Just gratuitous amounts of paint, including the pilot name and rank. Just really good stuff. There's a 100 on the back instead of a 001 that Bandai says they meant to do that. So something to note there, but otherwise just glorious paint, especially in comparison to the very sparsely decorated Yamato, which, you know, you would apply all your stickers to solve that issue, but the Yamato looking pretty plain in comparison. Now, what Yamato did do was come out with their weathering version toys, which you saw the VF-1J Hikaru earlier in this review. They have this weathering effect all over them, but not only that, they actually have some details already applied, some stickers already applied before they did the weathering to give them a nice look. So there you can see on the vertical stabilizer, we have a couple markings on the legs, and then all the way up through the cockpit. So these are more detailed toys, but they're extremely limited. So this is all I'm gonna really do as far as discussing them in this review. They're out there. This is what most people are gonna be shopping for or having already possessed. You may remember a scene in Do You Remember Love where Max is in his VF-1S and he tries to shoot down Miria by turning his head and using those turrets. You can't do that on a Yamato 148 toy, but on the Bandai DX toy, you can pull the head up. It's a little tricky because the lasers get in the way and they're all articulated, but you can pull this head up, you can aim, and you can fire at any oncoming Quidlun Rao. The Yamato 148 toy has integrated landing gear with anime-accurate 3-door bays in the front and rear. We have nice clear inserts in the back landing gear. All landing gear are made of metal. The front landing gear has the articulated tow bar. All landing gear features spinning wheels with rubber tires, and they lock in the forward position, so I can take this toy, roll it around, and you can see I've got the gun attached and it's not dragging on the ground as I do this. The Bandai DX toy does all of those same things, and it adds the ability to pivot the wheels outward to get a wider stance. You also have a much bigger gun on this toy, and it still can sit on the ground, roll in both directions without anything dragging. These toys come with removable intake fan covers, and I've pre-loosened mine a little bit, but you just take a finger, poke it out, and there's your intake fan detail, which you've already seen. DX toy, same idea, just pops off. What the DX toy did though, going a little bit further, is incorporated the intake fan cover look into the top of the housing, so it looks like when it's opened that it has simply collapsed, where there's no evidence of that on the Yamato toy, it just disappears. The Yamato toy comes with missiles, both Do You Remember Love style and TV style. The Do You Remember Love style missiles also have a top that pops off, so you could store your TV style missiles within them, which is pretty cool. The TV style missiles also have the ability to come apart for diorama purposes. All very cool. To install the missiles, you just flip your toy over, grab the missile and plug it into the hole on the wing. Should give you a nice clip. The only missiles that really give me problems on Yamato 148 style toys are the reaction missiles. They're a little heavier, they tend to wobble and not fit on there as securely as the Do You Remember Love or TV style missiles. For Bandai, you need to buy separate missile parts, and the missiles you get are either Do You Remember Love style or TV style in that bundle. You also get reaction missiles as part of that bundle. You have the same ability to unplug the TV style missiles, which is fine. You do not have storage within the Do You Remember Love missiles. The attachment to the toy is essentially the same. Flip it over, plug it in. It's gonna be nice and solid regardless of what type of missile you install. Both toys feature opening canopies, and both companies gave us movie-style pilot figures and TV-style pilot figures. Yamato even gave us a low-vis variant pilot figures just for funsies, but only Bandai gave us a separate mold for the cockpit instrumentation. On the Yamato toy, it was this same cluster on every single toy, regardless of whether or not it was a TV or Do You Remember Love version. On the Bandai DX toys, you can see there's a little heads-up display on the TV version. Also, the TV version has a control that comes up right in the middle, where on Do You Remember Love, the pilot would be holding the controls off on either side. There's a different instrumentation cluster with some artwork on the movie version that isn't on the TV version. So Bandai going a little bit further with the specification between movie and TV versions. Both toys have air brakes that flip up in the front and are a little tricky to open, and you don't want to scratch anything. There is the Yamato version of it. You can see just a little bit of painted on detail in there. Then we have the Bandai version. No real painted detail, just a dark gray inside. I don't know, both work for me. I didn't really find a reason to prefer one much over the other one. Yamato also varied on how they treated that from paint scheme to paint scheme. You also get wing flaps on both toys, for better or worse. They do a pretty decent job after the first few releases of the Yamato 148 staying on. I haven't really had a problem with the DX toy either. Both toys also allow you to pull out the thruster and direct it, as we see in the intro of the Macross game. So I can do the same thing over here, no big deal. And then both toys feature a nose cone gimmick. The Bandai actually, or the Yamato I should say, actually tried to make it look like some sort of a sensor array, so good on them. On the DX toy, it's really just for a future GBP. You can pop this loose, no detail, not much of a reason to do it. On the very first DX release, the launch version VF-1J, that piece came off way too easily. So Yamato went ahead and added a little tooth to the nose cone. And as you can see now, it is tough to pop open and tough to reseat, and it won't be fiddling around with you and annoying you as you handle it anymore. Yeah, but you want to play it with your toys, so which one plays better? Well, the DX toy, definitely much heavier, very sturdy to hold, but it's got a couple minor nuisances. These little finlets in the back being the primary one. They move for both the landing gear and a future GBP accessory. I also don't like how the arms attach to fighter mode. There's little pegs sticking straight down from inside, and the arms have holes and they just press up into those pegs. But anytime you have vertical pegs working against gravity, that fit has to be absolutely perfect to work properly. And you can see it's just not quite there on Bandai DX toys. Good enough, but not perfect, and we always strive for perfection, right? On the 1S toys, the articulated head laser is also very easy to bump askew. The Yamato toy, on the other hand, very light, handles pretty decently. It's definitely a next generation VF-1 toy. It's not falling apart on me. The only issues here, again, like the DX toy, the arms and how they are stowed. There needs to be sufficient pressure from the legs, so it's best to whoosh your toy around holding onto the legs and pressing inward a little bit. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to bump the gun off or have the arms kind of droop down on you a little bit more. Otherwise, holds together great, plays just fine. Both toys come with guns. This is the Yamato 148 scale gun. It does have the same collapsing grip and collapsing back that we've seen on Yamato guns since the version 160 toys. The later versions had those same collapsing mechanisms. This one also adds the strap for Batroid and Gerwalk modes. That strap attaches via these little rings, but now if I had this toy and wanted to put this on a fighter mode VF-1 by plugging it in underneath, I would have to remove those rings, and they fit in via these tiny little holes. It's kind of difficult to do, and as these guns get older, the plastic becomes more brittle, and it's more likely to break in the process. In contrast, the Bandai DX gun, which is quite a bit bigger, has those same collapsing features. So I can take this, bring that in, bring this in. I also have a gun strap with rings front and back, but those rings attach to pegs. So I can just pull the strap right off, and now it's ready to go underneath my VF-1, unlike the Yamato 148 gun, which still has that strap. Now I could, with the Yamato 148, just kind of pull the strap off to the side, but it won't fit quite as securely and it's a little awkward. Another place the DX shines are the hands, and it starts with the wider forearm, which is nice. The mechanism to get the hand out is pretty much the same. You pull up in a door, you spin the hand out, and then there you go. You have this nice, looks like a decently sized hand, and I can pull this off. This hand has a ball jointed wrist, so you can imagine how much spinning around it can do, but it also has individually articulated fingers with knuckles and a thumb. I mentioned that the toy comes with fixed posed hands, so we can grab one of those. Again, ball joint connection. We can plug that on and it'll rock and twist and do all the things we want it to do. The Yamato 148 hand, same flip open, spin out hand. Once it gets here, it's on a peg, not the most firmly attached peg. The wrist is a hinge and it's a little loose, so the weight of a gun can cause it to sway. The hand is very small in comparison here. We have a thicker, nicer hand on the DX toy, pretty small hand on the Yamato. Looks kind of chicken fingery, so much better hand on the DX toy. The Yamato toy has an integrated antenna for Gerwalk mode. The Bandai DX toy has a separate part that you just simply plug into a hole. So Perfect Transformation fans might not be a big fan, but you can see the antenna looks much better as a plug-in part. The feet on the Bandai DX toy are pure metal, and the DX toy overall weighs 492 grams. The Yamato toy has no real big chunks of metal, just some metal and a couple little hinges here and there, and only weighs 320 grams. That's less than the old 155 Takatoku or Bandai reissue of that toy. So pretty light, even though it's a very large toy. The other thing the Bandai does is it has the extension joint in the knee, and check out my full transformation guide to see that in action. But that allows the toy to have a much steeper angle and put that center of gravity right in the middle of Gerwalk mode, which is great. Yamato, you don't have that. You have the center of gravity towards the back, so as you handle this toy, it'll be more likely to fall forward on you. The other thing you might have on your Yamato toy is a little bit looser ratchets in the feet. So they are ratcheted feet, but it's a pretty light ratchet on one side. So as I handle this toy, it's more likely to fall over. On the Bandai toy, you have this extreme range of motion forward and back, and it's on a ball joint. So you also have the ability to twist in and out, and there's a pivot inside the housing, so you can bring that foot inside or outside, depending on how you want to angle the foot. With the Yamato toy, you do get missiles, which is still fun. Bandai toy, you get that display stand, also fun. You have to buy your missiles separately. Yamato, you can buy a launch arm separately, so you've got those options. Speaking of separate, I do have a transformation guide you should check out for both of these toys to see the differences in transformation. But getting to Gerwalk mode, the big one is the extending legs, and also these hinges right here. The arms are inside, they fold over, this slides back and then forward. It's very smooth process, intuitive and clean. Yamato uses the tried and true method of folding over a hinge and then swinging it forward on a pivot point and going over some locks along the root. Works just fine. Both toys hold together very well in Gerwalk mode, but the DX toy has more articulation, better balance, and is a lot more fun to handle. The Yamato 148 scale toy comes with integrated side cavity fillers. They're maybe not the most impressive thing, but they are there, and that's kind of cool. The Bandai DX toy does not have an integrated side cavity filler, but it does come with a plug-in part that obviously does a lot better job than the Yamato integrated part. Back to back, they face each other. The Yamato has an integrated hook that comes back and grabs the backpack and keeps it flush up against the back. Now this is only possible because the antenna that normally pokes out through the back plate recesses in. Now don't screw that up. If you leave that out and you try to smash the backpack down, there's a good chance you will break the backpack hinge. That hinge is also kind of brittle on these toys. I had one that broke just as I brought the backpack up, so be careful with that back hinge there. So the Bandai toy does not have an integrated hook. The backpack does do a decent job of staying forward like so. The antenna that would be problematic is spring-loaded on the DX toy, which is pretty cool. As you can see, the DX toy also has a baffle on that back neck plate that conceals that cavity back there as well.
And it has little cavity fillers up at the front here, where we have these cavities on the chest of the Yamato. Not so on the DX toy, which is pretty nice. You also get individually articulated cannons on the head, which are little ball joints, which is pretty cool, but it also can be problematic if you're going for symmetrical looks, because you're now going to have to adjust 4 different little cannons. On the Yamato, 2 cannons on 1 pivot point, and that's all you got. On the Yamato toy, the head can twist left and right, and it can look up just a little bit and down. The plate it's on also spins around. Some of them peg in a little bit better than others, but there you go. That's the Yamato toy. And you can see no real detail within that visor. If we bring the DX toy over, there is lens detail within that visor, which is pretty cool. The head does the same, looking up and looking down and looking left and looking right, but it also can cock, which is pretty cool too. The Yamato 148 toy is amazingly well hung. It is just dangling way past the rather large wings, so really large crotch if that's what you're into in Batroid mode. Yamato also gave this toy the ability to twist at the waist. Now, unfortunately, since the swing bar connects the legs up through the back, all you can do is twist to the level of slop you have, which really isn't very much. Bandai, on the other hand, has much less of a crotch. It's coming down right to about wing level. And again, in comparison, you can see that crotch much further on the Yamato 148. And they gave us a waist, but you have 2 different flavors of this waist. If you leave the swing bar connected to the back, like we saw was kind of the Yamato issue that nerfed that rotation point, same thing happens with the DX toy. It won't twist at the waist, but you have the option to take that swing bar, disconnect this housing right here, put the swing bar up inside the chest area, and then we can take the toy and we can rotate it at the chest quite a bit. Yamato gave us ball joints in a couple areas, including the hips, which is pretty cool. So you can bring the leg in, you can bring it out, you can twist it in, twist it out. You can obviously move the wing and bring it all the way up, all the way back. This is a huge improvement over something like the Takatoku 155 scale toy. And even the range of movement is an improvement over Yamato's version 160 VF-1 toys. So that was good to see. You also got ball jointed shoulders, which are pretty cool. So you can rotate that around, pivot up and down, and bring the arm out at the shoulder. All very good things there. Bandai has brought all of those elements over to the DX toy. So you have the ball jointed leg, same range of movement, backwards, forwards, in and out. But they also gave us another point of pivot right here below the intakes, which allows you to get this super extreme wide stance that Yamato and their 148 scale toy can't come anywhere near. Really no toy can come anywhere near that super wide stance. Now we also get the ball joint still at the shoulder, and the hinge itself pivots, so you got even more range of movement there, and you still can bring the arm out like so. So all of the good elements of the Yamato 148 scale toy, some improvements of the range of movement, and then even additional hinges so you could have even more fun with it. One of the big weaknesses that Yamato addressed with the 148 scale toy when they moved to the 160 scale toy version 2 was the elbow articulation. So we have a nice twist point right above the elbow, but the elbow itself can only go 90 degrees, which is very limiting when it comes to dynamic posing. Bandai, on the other hand, has reworked the elbow joints to go even beyond what Yamato did with their 160 scale toy. So the rotation point is up higher on the arm and enables a double joint in the elbow, which allows you to come all the way up and touch the shoulders, which is super impressive. And while we're looking at articulation, One more gratuitous point that you won't find on a Yamato 148 scale toy is you even get an articulated nozzle in the backpack. Everyone should own a Yamato 148 scale VF-1. Probably just one though. It's an amazing piece. It is in a historical footnote. It is the evolution of the VF-1 toy as we know it. It is the missing link found. But if you're only shopping for the best possible VF-1, it's the Bandai DX. Who knows how big the universe will be? They'll probably have the paint scheme you really love at some point. It does everything a Yamato 148 scale toy does, and everything a Yamato 160 version 2 toy does, and add some improvements on top of all of that. It's a fantastic toy. It's expensive, it's not cheap, but it's not crazy expensive in comparison to what the Yamato 148 scale MSRP'd for. So check out my full article on anymoon.com if there's any questions I haven't answered for you. Subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.